Conservative isn't just a word, it's a movement, a way of life.
And secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity.
The Conservative Roundtable discusses the conservative movement at the local, state, and national level. Here's your host, Ralph Larigo, chairman of the Erie County Conservative Party on 1270 The Patriot.
Welcome back. Again, you can listen to us every Saturday from 11 to 1. Tell your friends about it. We're going to have a number of interesting shows. You'll hear from people like Dr. John Long, like Jim Schaller. We're going to have many others on that you'll have an interest in. Make sure you tell your friends about it. And like I said, there are 4 ways to listen. Obviously, you can listen on your AM station at 1270, The Patriot. You can go online at 1270thepatriot.com. That would be 1270thepatriot.com. So you can go and get a mobile app and just have the Patriot on your mobile app. And certainly the easiest way, if you got Alexa in your house, as most people do, just simply say, Alexa, open up 1270 The Patriot. All right, we're going to get back. I want to ask Jim a couple of questions about what can be done in the Purple Heart group. What first of all, does the group do for veterans?
We set up a scholarship fund, the Dr. John B. Long Scholarship Fund, to give a reward to students that are excellent in school. Dr. Long was so deserving of us putting aside money for a scholarship fund, and he goes along with us when we award the student.
Okay, my understanding, going online and taking a look at the group as a whole is exactly that. You provide assistance and grants to veterans, scholarships, service dogs. A very interesting thing, service dogs. Certainly, your purpose is to promote patriotism and to advance the needs of veterans. All good goals. And I did read online that since 1957, the beginning of your organization, you've raised $250 million to help veterans across this country. So tell us a little bit about how an individual can get involved or how an individual can donate to your organization.
If someone wants to donate to the Purple Heart, they can simply either go online to purpleheart.org, or if it's something local, they can write a check to Chapter 187, and I'll give you a phone number contact if someone wants to make a donation. We're always open to donations to help veterans. Phone number is area code 336-776-8449. We'd be more than happy to accept any donations.
So the area code is 336, but the address actually is local here in Tonawanda, correct?
Yeah, we lived down in North Carolina for 8 years, and I never changed my phone number.
Okay, so again, that number is 336-776-8449. So if you want to make a donation to this very, very worthwhile cause, and if you want to affect veterans here, locally, here in Erie County, you contact Jim Schaller, you contact and make a donation. You can simply call 336-776-8449. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks.
So now we're going to turn to Nancy and one of the hats that Nancy Orticelli wears. She wears a number of hats. She is on the Erie County Conservative Executive Board. She is the chairman of the town of West Seneca. She is president of the local Constitutional Coalition. She has a talk show host of her own. She has a talk show radio of her own. She sings in a band. And she's a very, very accomplished individual. So, Nance, tell us here about the Constitutional Coalition.
Sure. So the Constitutional Coalition started over 7 years ago. We used to be Erie County Scope Shooters Committee on Political Education. And we wanted to do something that encompassed the entire Constitution. It didn't just focus on one part of the Constitution, which is the Second Amendment. Because in my experience, groups that are one-issue voters tend to disregard the entire Constitution and are willing to make concessions and compromises on other points of the Constitution. So we formed about 7 years ago. I'm the third president. I've been president, I think, for about 5 years. And we're a group whose only motive is to educate and to unite. We want to get people involved in voting locally. We want to get people involved in teaching points of the Constitution, because a lot of people in this day and age really don't understand politics. I can't tell you how many messages I just got during the primaries that said, the Republicans, they wouldn't let me vote at my voting location because they said we don't have a primary. How is that possible? And I'm like, well, we don't have a primary. It's really not that, difficult to understand. So it's part of educating. We also like to bring in speakers, from around the state, from around the country, and have them educate on whatever the constitutional topic is that they're experts on. And I guess our main goal is to unite other grassroots organizations throughout the state, because a lot of them don't even know about each other. And it's so much more effective when we work together. In fact, the woman who just called, Dorothy, she's a staunch advocate for senior citizens. And so we work with her as far as that's concerned. We also work with groups like Moms for Liberty, Western New York Students First, the Coalition to Protect Kids, now Erie County Scope, who has a new president. We work with all these different groups to promote and give them a voice, like you said, on our radio show or during our social media posts. That's what we try to do. So
I first met you a while back and was extremely impressed when you invited me to be able to talk a little bit about, during COVID, about what I was involved in representing 200 families across 40 states to get this drug ivermectin. You were able to put 500 people into a room and let me talk in front of that group of people. That's an amazing accomplishment, to be able to put that many people in a room. I know that you also brought Bobby Kennedy here, and so tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so yes, during times of extreme duress in communities, you will always have a large crowd. And during COVID and lockdown, people were looking for somebody to help, and we were there to help in whatever capacity that was. And I'm going to get a little candid here, Ralph. I hope you don't mind. So
go right ahead.
I was not Ralph's biggest fan back in the day, years ago. My grassroots roots basically taught me not to trust anybody who was quote unquote establishment. And that is a wrong way of thinking. When you don't give somebody a chance, when you don't get to know them. And through a series of events, Ralph and I were able to speak and get to know each other. And he was able to explain some things to me that really opened my eyes as to who this man truly is and what he's about. And watching what you did during lockdown and advocating for people to have medical freedom, bodily autonomy, to make their own choices without having the state or the government implement some kind of mandate that goes against their core beliefs. That was so honorable to me. You actually were instrumental in saving a dear friend life of mine, Aisha Kreutz, who was another grassroots leader in Rochester. And I just am so indebted to you. And I wanted people to know the real Ralph Lorigo. And so that's why we invited you. And you won over a lot of hearts that night when you spoke at that church in Elma, and people were finally able to see who you are, that you really do care. You're not this man who sits in a glass house on castle up on a hill and is unreachable. You are a man of the people. People just need to know you and talk to you. And so, that was one of the things I wanted to do, because when you look at the relationship between grassroots and committees, the political parties in Western New York, Working Families Party is starting to have a great relationship with the Democrats. I mean, you look at India Walton, you look at Sean Ryan, you look at Mom Donnie, but the grassroots organizations in the Republican and conservative committees in New York State do not have that. And I think that that is essential in New York in order to win elections because we are so far outnumbered. And you were the first chairman, I guess, organizer, political operative, that even though operative is kind of a negative word, you were the first one to open your doors to us. And you allowed us to come and have a seat at the table. You have your breakfast every Saturday morning. And I think that relationship is starting to grow. And as a result, it's starting to open the doors with the Erie County GOP as well. They are, willing to talk to us, willing to invite us to whatever they're doing. And I think, like I said, that is instrumental. We're not going to win if we're divided. I think the biggest example of grassroots and committees working together was the Lee Zeldin race. We were all united. And Lee Zeldin is the one who set the example and set the standard for that. His first grassroots meeting that he attended was our coalition's meeting. Before he got really popular with the GOP, he came to Elma, New York, and spoke at the Constitutional Coalition of New York State. And then he went around and tirelessly visited every single grassroots organization in New York State that he could. Moms for Liberty, Western New York Students First. He went and visited them all. And with us working together with the committees, the political committees, he almost won. He came so close. And I think that was so instrumental. And that was kind of, everybody was upset when he lost, as they should have been. But it was so discouraging to so many people. And I went on we sent out an email from our coalition and our radio show. And I said, no. Do you people realize nobody has come this close to defeating a Democrat governor in New York State in so long? And look how close we got to doing that, working together. Opening, you know what, we're not going to always agree. We're not going to always agree with the establishment. They're not going to always agree with us. But when we work together, we see what we can do. And now is not the time to fall back. Now's the time to push forward. That it was a shot in the arm to me personally to continue working with groups like the Conservative Party in New York, Russ Gugino, who's sitting here next to me. I mean, Russ has been so instrumental in, you're a grassroots guy. I mean, I saw you go to Pennsylvania, go door to door for Trump. And you're what people would consider establishment as well.
One of the functions of this show is not only to tell people what conservatives believe, but also to get people involved in the process. The Conservative Coalition, or the Constitutional Coalition, I always mispronounce it, whether you're a Republican or Democrat or whether you're an independent, if you have views that you want to express and you don't want to be involved in a political party, the Constitutional Coalition is a vehicle for you to make changes in this community. This show is a panel about conservative values. And if you think that the Conservative Party can represent and does represent your values, by all means, go to the net and go to Erie County Conservatives. You'll go to our website and you'll see the principles and values that we stand for. Life before birth and all during life, as well as many other things, not just life, not just the Second Amendment, but a lot of other things. But and if you're a Republican, so be it. Maybe you want to go to an established party. But this is a forum for you to be not only educated, but to find a way to get involved. When I worked for Jack Kemp, and we worked so closely with John Long, Jack would say, and it's a favorite line of John's, you serve your party best by serving your country first. And you have to serve this country first at the community level. You don't have to be going to demonstrations in Washington necessarily. There's so many things you can do in so many different varieties. And the Constitutional Coalition is a tremendous opportunity for you to be involved in making this country and making this community better.
Okay, we also need to go to a soft break. Before we go to that soft break, I just want you to think about this. Lee Zeldin in the last gubernatorial race, Governor Hochul got 2,957,602 votes. Lee got 2,666,065 votes. We lost by only 291,537 votes. Mm-hmm. That's incredible. Think about that. We'll talk about it on the way when we're back. Okay, welcome back. So you see, Lee Zeldin lost by 291,537 votes. That is a small number when you take a look at voter registration in this state. But one thing I want to point out, and I want Nancy to talk about, is gun ownership. We have 6.3 million registered gun owners in the state of New York. 6.3 million. So Kathy Hochul won her race by 2,957,000 votes. A Democrat would not win any race whatsoever in the state of New York if gun owners voted. And it's estimated that a small percentage of gun owners did vote in the gubernatorial election at last time. And if only a couple of percent more of gun owners voted, that 291,000 number for Lee Zeldin certainly could have been had. We could have had Lee Zeldin as our governor. So go ahead, Nancy. Tell us about trying to get people involved, what you're doing at the grassroots level to get people involved to the point where I get that people think politics is bad. They think it's nasty. They think it's a blood sport.
It is.
It is a blood sport. I get that. Uh-huh. But we've survived in it, and we know that it's public service. I mean, we've got to drive people in that direction. This is public service, what we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to accomplish something for the good of all of us, and people need to be involved, and that's exactly what you do in these grassroots groups.
Correct. So the gun owners they're an enigma. I've seen different gun organizations trying to reach out to these voters since the SAFE Act was passed in 2013, and they were gaining momentum. A lot of these groups were doing a good job, but there was a lot of infighting, which is unfortunately the demise of a lot of political parties and grassroots groups, and it just kind of dropped by the wayside. And now you see Attorney Bobby Ann Cox. Ralph, we were just at her event the other night where she's doing a voter registration drive for Uniting New York State. And voter registration is good, but you kind of don't know what are they going to vote then after you register them? And I think that's where we drop the ball with grassroots organizations. We sign them up, register them to vote, see that they're maybe already registered to vote, and then there's no follow-up. And if you look at the most successful voter registration activist in my lifetime, it's Scott Pressler. And Scott Pressler worked so hard in Pennsylvania for Donald Trump, but he did more than just register people to vote. He had a whole network of volunteers who then followed up with those voters, calling them on the day of the election when early voting started, offering rides. And that's the part where grassroots gets a little bone weary. Who has the time? We all work. And Scott dedicated his life, so he was able to do 24/7 voter registration and follow-up in Pennsylvania, and he's still doing this. And so this is where I think your organized committees, instead of grassroots or working together, could do this, where you have an organized committee, you have the data, you have the numbers, you have the money and the means to reach these people to follow up. However, I'm thinking about Dr. Long's comments, how it's a person-to-person. Like I've listened to you talk to these callers that just called in. You're the most kind. You sound genuine, kind, authentic. But I think when you start doing calls from a committee, you're reading from a script and you don't sound authentic. There's not that relationship. So I think with the gun owners, it's almost a lost cause right now in New York State, because if the SAFE Act wasn't enough to get them out to vote, if the background checks on ammunition now isn't enough to get them out to vote, I don't know what's going to.
I won't accept that it's a lost cause.
Well, let me tell you about this other demographic. This other demographic right now for this governor's race, in my opinion, is who the grassroots and the committees need to go after. The corrections officers. They went through hell a few months ago. Absolute hell. I was out there every day at a prison, Wendy, Attica, trying to encourage these people. And I have never seen people so scared. They were absolutely terrified, but they were determined as well to get their point across. I marched with nurses. I marched with teachers during lockdown. They were outspoken warriors. These corrections officers were so intimidated and so terrified about what was going to happen to them that I think that our motive and our goal, and I actually spoke to Michael Henry about this a couple months ago, and he said we shouldn't have this opportunity right now to defeat a governor after what happened to Lee Zeldin, but we do because of what happened to the corrections officers.
As you know, Nance, I represent over 350
Yes, you do.
correction officers, and I've been fighting that fight. We were in court again last Tuesday. I talked to Mike Henry. Mm-hmm. We are going to do a show on that specific topic because I do agree with you that the state government has gone so far to the left. They're willing to put inmates above correction officers. They're willing to hurt correction officers for the sake of inmates. It's just incredible what I've seen in representing these 350 correction officers. And so we will do a show about it. I do believe you're right that it is part of the motivation, but there are so many things that are part of the motivation. Bail reform. Mm-hmm. I mean, how can the citizen feel comfortable in their house when they know that someone can rob their house, get just a ticket to come back to court, and go back and rob your house again? I mean, it's just incredible. And then you have this death of this child that took place. Again, these terrible things have taken place in New York because the liberals have taken so much control. So,
well, unless, in my experience, which I'm, not as experienced as you are, in my experience, unless something happens to someone personally, they don't care. So you have the bail reform issue. You're going to get a few people out because of that, but a lot of people, if it doesn't happen to you, you don't care. And if people could just step outside of themselves and have compassion for, each other, they would see that, look, that woman, what was her name? Amanda Thompson, she was just shot in the city of Buffalo because of bail reform, but it didn't happen to them, so no one's willing to cross the line for somebody else. I did see it during lockdown. People who lost their jobs, all of a sudden our meetings were packed, and then, yes. This, Ralph, you mentioned the fact that you're representing these corrections officers. I want every one of your listeners to understand this. Ralph stood up for people during lockdown who wanted medical freedom and bodily autonomy. Now he's doing it again, and he's taking on these cases for these people. What's his motivation? His motivation is because he knows that it was wrong, and he wants to help these people. So once again, Ralph Lorigo, you're the hero of the grassroots community.
I appreciate all that, but my purpose is to motivate people. We've got to change New York. I'm an old man now. I'm stuck here in New York. I don't want to see young people leave this state. I want to see this state be the Empire State, and the only way we're going to accomplish that is to change our government, and we have the ability. We have the people. For example, the gun owners. We have the groups of people who can take control. This isn't a state that should or be controlled simply by New York City, by aliens who vote. It should be a state where the ethnic groups, the workers of our country, our state, the people who have values vote and, put in the right people. Lee Zeldin was exactly the right person, and now we have Elise Stefanik, who I believe has an excellent chance of becoming governor in the next election.
I do, too. I do as well. The general consensus along grassroots organizations is go all out for Elise Stefanik. So I'm looking forward to watching the grassroots groups working along with the establishment groups again. And because people who are involved in grassroots, this is not their full-time job. it's hard for them to pick and choose which race or races they need to be involved in, because it does take a lot out of all of us, our time, our resources, our money. My encouraging word to these people is the next year, only focus on the governor's race. If you're in grassroots, only focus on the governor's race. Volunteer for everything you can. Get out and rally. Do what you need to do to support this candidate, because we may never have another chance again.
You know, after George Borrello had that fundraiser on Tuesday night, I had breakfast with Bobby Ann Cox and Carl Palladino the next morning. My advice to Elise Stefanik is to engage people like Bobby Ann Cox, like you. She is really a crusader, Bobby Ann Cox. She's willing to travel the state on her own dime and do good for people. She has brought a lot of litigation in this state that has benefited the citizens of this state. But I think with her talent, with her ability, my advice to Elise would be to have someone like Bobby Ann Cox go to different groups, make sure they're registered, make sure they're motivated, make sure they vote. And then, like you say, the most important aspect of any campaign is the get out the vote aspect of it. It's one thing to go to people, to call them, to talk to them, to send them mailers, to text them, all of the social media that we have today. It's another, as John Long said, that personal contact, that actual touching of people. And one of the things Russ really did for us is he took a group into Pennsylvania, a swing state for Trump. And he, on a weekly basis, took a group of people to Pennsylvania. They went door to door. They talked to people. And we were able to win that swing state. And I think in a large part because of people like Russ, because of people willing to go to that extent to get something accomplished. That's what needs to be done. And Nance, you've got this great, group, this constitutional coalition group, and I know you're pitching this every day.
Well, speaking of Bobby Ann Cox, I had a phone call from her in 2020. September of 2020, didn't know who she was. Nobody knew who she was. She asked if she could meet Assemblyman David DiPietro. And, working for a politician, you try to weed out who's who. And so our coalition actually started supporting her back then. And that's what we do. We try to support other people because we cannot do this alone. And yeah, our goal and motivation is to bring everybody together, to unite everyone. And we don't even care if you're a Democrat, a Republican, I wouldn't say Working Families Party, a Libertarian. As long as you support the tenets of the Constitution of the United States of America, our doors are open to anybody, no matter your race, your sexual orientation. That's just how we are. The Constitution is for everybody or it's for nobody. It's when you start overstepping and asking for more rights for yourself than anybody else that's where it becomes a problem. So, you can reach out to us. I know we have a couple minutes left, but you can reach out to us. Our email is ccnys@usa.com, or you could find us on Facebook. You could even call me if you want, 716-548-6560. We help everybody with everything. I've even hooked people up with you. A lot of people who need, an attorney. If anybody needed a religious exemption, I'll write it for you, for your kids to go to school. We just try to unite everybody.
I want to put in another commercial for the Conservative Party. This is a conservative forum, of course. And the Conservative Party, for those who may not be familiar with issues, there's really one issue. It's freedom.
That's right.
Your freedom. Mm-hmm. If you think that government should be controlling your life, you are not a conservative. But if you think that that freedom, your individual freedom, is something you treasure and you want to protect, recently somebody came to John Long at a party where he gets, "Thank you for your service." Somebody came up to him the other day and said, "Thank you for my freedom."
Nice.
That's what this is about, ladies and gentlemen. Mm-hmm. This is about your freedom. There are people in this government, and particularly New York City, but don't think the governor isn't part of this, that want to close the prisons down. They want to substitute social workers for police. We're living in a society where it's becoming undone. And it's coming undone at the cost of your freedom. So I suggest go to the Erie County Conservative website or the Constitutional Coalition website or Facebook page. By the way, the Conservative Party has a Facebook page too. And if you're interested, believe me, we're interested in you. I'm Russ Gagino. I used to work for Jack Kemp. You can reach me at 716-440-9259. I can assure you anybody who calls gets a response right away. And if you'd like to participate in what we do, we'll give you plenty of opportunities.
Okay, we'll be right back. Okay, welcome back, everyone. We're going to switch now to some local issues. We're going to have my county legislator, Legislator Lindsay Larigo, talk to us a little bit about what's going on in Erie County at this point in time. So, Lindsay, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome, Linz. So, Linz, I understand that the Erie County Home, the facility in Alden, that used to house 700 residents, nursing home residents on 153-acre property, which has not been used for quite some time at this point in time, there's a consideration for selling it for $1. Is that correct?
Yep. So last week in front of us at the legislature, we had kind of phase one of this process, which is an environmental phase. This property, it's 153 acres of asbestos-ridden buildings that have been deteriorating since there have been no inhabitants. There have not been anybody in those buildings since 2016, I believe, but even before then, most of the buildings were empty, starting in the early 2000s because of so many issues. Currently, the county is still responsible for maintenance, so think electrical, think mowing 152 acres of grass. In the most recent estimates, to basically just gut the entire property would cost Erie County taxpayers between $10 million and $17 million on a conservative estimate. So we've been trying to get rid of this property. It is on the county rolls right now, but the town of Alden isn't receiving any property tax benefit from it. It is just sitting there completely vacant. So we were approached by these developers that are looking to open a local business, hire about 100 local employees, totally renovate the property that is currently in negative value. So while it isn't the ideal situation, it reduces the liability to the county and gets us out of what is otherwise a negatively valued property.
In my opinion, this is a good thing. To take a property that's not benefiting the public whatsoever, in fact, costing the public a substantial amount, and having it developed, putting it back on the tax rolls, giving a purpose to it, that's got to be a plus, right?
It's definitely a plus, especially when you think about the town of Alden is a smaller town, so putting 153 acres back on the tax rolls is significant for them. It wasn't a vote I was super excited to take, to be perfectly honest with you, whenever we're selling this amount of property for the value of $1 to developers. That's not the conservative in me gets a little nervous that this isn't what we should be doing. But at the same time, this property, it's a liability to the county. Imagine the danger that the mold and asbestos is. So when we have these developers looking to make a positive impact on our community, I think it's an opportunity we should take, and it's the best option and really only option we have in front of us right now. We have shopped it around before to other developers looking to unload it, but it's just the amount of remediation costs. Nobody's really interested in it. It's going to be a huge undertaking for them, and they're looking to break ground and fall. So I think it'll be a really positive impact for the town of Alden and for overall Erie County taxpayers.
So again, when you look, I agree with you. Selling something for $1 doesn't sound right. But when you look at its actual value, in this particular case, it does have a negative value. The cost of remediation exceeds what, the value of the property. My understanding is it's been for sale for quite some time.
It's been for sale for quite some time. To say we've had little interest, I think would be overstating how much interest we've had. The costs are huge. So at $1, it actually is a good deal for Erie County. And this also takes the maintenance cost off of us because we are still paying for employees to go out there and maintain the grounds. And it's also not the best situation to be sending people into to maintain those sorts of grounds where it is dangerous. So instantly as this gets reassessed and they start developing, it's going to be really positive for the county and for the town. And they're looking to hire 150 people. So, it's just a good investment for the community. Again, it wasn't, when it's $1, I'm a little hesitant, but I think this is one of those situations where it's the best move for government right now, and getting developers in there that have proven that they do this kind of work. They've done it in several states. The closest one is New Jersey, and they've done it successfully. So I think it's going to be a really safe investment for Erie County.
To me, that's the most important aspect, is to look at the developers, to see that they have the wherewithal, to see that they're going to accomplish what they tell you, and that is being done, correct? That they're checking out the developers and knowing that they have the wherewithal. Are you hearing me, Linz? Did I lose you for a bit? Okay, let's see if we can get Lindsay back. So, folks, in my opinion, the county's been trying to sell this for quite some time. It has not been used for quite some time. If you see the pictures of this facility, what is written about it is only birds are inhabiting the facility at this point in time. People are, you can't just safely go into the facility. It's that bad off. So the maintenance of 153 acres, as Lynn's pointed out, is costly to county taxpayers. The asbestos and the lead paint that's in these buildings are costly. We have you back, Linz?
You lost me there.
Okay, I'm here now. So I was just saying, Linz, before we lost you, that at least there's been an investigation. The developers that are seeking this property definitely have the wherewithal, definitely have the experience, and definitely have the capacity to improve this property. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, they've done it in several other states. Like I said, New Jersey, if I didn't cut out, New Jersey is the closest place that they've done something similar. But they've done it across the country. They've been successful with this. The proper environmental studies have been conducted or are being conducted by New York State. The reason that we did this Thursday is because they are ready to get in and start pouring concrete in the fall and taking out some of these buildings that are a real risk to the county. So they're ready to go, and kind of the quicker we can make this happen, the quicker the community will benefit.
And as I understand it, the town of Alden is definitely in favor of the project.
They are. It's good, like I said, for a smaller town like Alden, having 152 acres that are just sitting there abandoned, nobody's paying, property taxes on it, to have this kind of investment and to be able to be hiring, they're estimating about 100 people they're going to look to hire in this high security facility. It's a job opportunity. It's an investment into the community. It's a no-brainer for the town of Alden. So,
Linz, in our own town, the West Seneca Developmental Center is in a similar situation. Isn't that true? And at least a similar situation in terms of it has a negative value at this point.
Yeah, and that was something when I wasn't super excited to vote yes on a dollar sale. I thought, we have this in our own backyard, and it's been sitting there. And the longer you let it sit, the worse the problem gets. And I think if West Seneca had an opportunity like this, I would want to see that move forward. Unfortunately, with the developmental site in West Seneca, it's a little different because the state owns it, so there's a lot of different municipalities at play there. And I know there's been conversations with the state before about how to move forward with that, but this will be a really good first example, and maybe we could get them interested in expanding into West Seneca. Yeah.
My understanding is the cost of removing the asbestos, the cost of taking down those buildings is prohibitive. And, a developer isn't going to go into something that costs more than the value of the land once you do the remediation.
It's a unique investing situation.
So another thing that came up interesting in the legislature was the sky lanterns. What are sky lanterns?
They're these paper lanterns that you see people often at like weddings or graduation parties. You light a flame in them. It's actually an open flame that then you let off, and they go up into the air, and they can travel for over 5 miles. We've been in discussions with farmers. They came to the legislature and actually spoke about the impact that they've been having negatively. They cause fires, not just for farmers, but for any property owners. You don't know where they're landing. It's actually interesting because in New York State, an open flame like that is illegal, but the Sky Lantern somehow has gotten around it. So talking to local farmers, it's actually interesting representing a place like West Seneca that has so many wedding venues and event spaces. It's impacting farmers that I represent out in Concord. When you light that Sky Lantern in West Seneca and it goes all the way out to Concord and it lands on a tractor or it lands on, a gas can and starts a fire, or it falls into pieces and it's really sharp metal and like sticks that are in them. They kill livestock and all sorts of other issues. So this past week we did pass a ban on the sale and use of Sky Lanterns in Erie County. I think enforcement of this we're not expecting to fine a lot of people, but, when you alert these event spaces and things like that this is a new ban in place, they're going to make sure that their customers aren't using something like that. And it will have a positive impact overall. Like I said, this can cause property damage, not just to farmers, but to anybody if they land on your property.
So I understand this comes about by an Elma farmer that comes to the legislature and talks about Helen, his cow, and how his cow ate one of these. It perforated her stomach and she died. It really goes to show you that any single individual can really make a difference, can come to the legislature, can talk about their situation, and as in this situation, the legislature, can do something about it.
Yeah, and we also heard from the Farm Bureau and different other stakeholders that represent large groups of farmers in the area. I reached out to some other farmers, dairy farmers in Concord and Sardinia that I've visited throughout the years, and they shared the same concerns. They understand that when you're enjoying yourself and lighting these Sky Lanterns up, it's not ill intent, but you don't really think about it once it's out of your eyesight, but it's still traveling for miles. And the pieces of them, by the time that they're burned out, they are thin like hay, but they're sharp like a razor. And that's what makes them especially dangerous because they're very hard to go and pick up the pieces, which I know Bryant that came and spoke to us talked about how he walks his fields regularly to make sure he can pick up the pieces where he can. But it's not really easy to do. So, it's a common sense public safety law that I think a lot of people can get behind. And I'm happy to see that go through to protect homeowners and farmers alike.
I understand it is banned in Ulster County, and there are other counties that are considering the ban. Is that correct?
Yes, and there was actually a law at the state level that was going to ban untethered loose fires. It's just kind of like this is like a strange loophole with these Sky Lanterns that they get around, but they're illegal in several states and they're illegal in several counties in New York State. So it is kind of a general direction that the public is going in. I think this would just encourage possibly more counties, and then maybe the state would have more of an appetite for moving forward with legislation.
Thank you, Linz. I appreciate your ability to come on and talk to us about county issues. Obviously, these are important to the listeners, and they don't get out there that often. So I'm glad to have you on. I appreciate the time.
Anytime.
All right. Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Look, we are coming on a hard break. I want you to know that if you have a topic that's of interest to you, you can contact me at rlarigo@larigo.com. You can contact the station. You've heard Russ Gugino give his phone number, and Nancy. We are happy to go through your topics. So now we're going to go to a hard break.
Thank you for listening to the Conservative Roundtable with Ralph Larigo, Chairman of the Erie County Conservative Party. Listen to the show Saturdays from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on 1270 The Patriot and on demand anytime at 1270thepatriot.com and click on podcasts.